This wall needs to have outlets, except it's surrounded by steel and it's almost full of glass. That means I can run electrical the normal way. I could go through the outside, but then now I cannot use Romex, and now I'm dealing with cold, weather, and it's a much harder install. So how would you solve this problem? I have a huge steel beam supporting this wall, and then I have a steel beam on that side and a steel beam on that corner, so I cannot come around. But you know, before I deal with that problem, I'm going to start making the holes, put the outlets, and then I'll show you how I solve that problem, hopefully. The first thing I did is I made all the holes in the individual studs. I'm using a 1-inch Spade bit from Diablo. To be honest, I actually prefer the boring bits, like this one. But why 1 inch? I use 1 inch because I love to use these things that my friend Aaron Miller showed us in one of his videos. We effectively put them into the holes and then they just get hammered in, so that way the every single stud is protected and I don't have to deal with the little plates that go here on the side. Before anything, why do people push the drill into the studs? Maybe it's because I pay for it or everything, because when I see people doing that, you don't really need to do that. You just put it in and the drill makes the hole automatically, almost with little effort. You just kind of have to hold it in place. Some of my guys do this and they end up destroying the bits, and I'm the one that pays for them, and each one of these is like $6, so not happy about it. And then of course the drill or the impact suffers. So very important, please don't push the drill when you make holes. The drill will do the job for you. You absolutely need to have one of these. This is a 17.5 or something. It's a Diablo boring bit, 1 incher. And this is really the only way that you can make a hole on one of these humongous stacks of windows. Even though this is long enough, it's not long enough because I need to be able to run the drill and I need to be able to push it in. I need to be able to go in. So what I end up doing is I end up using all these little extensions. So for example, I have one here and then one here and one here. So then I can actually start making the hole from this side. I do have a little bit of advice for you, if you will, and this has happened to me at least a couple times. When you use a bit that's in this case like a 1/4 inch, they end up breaking like this because the torque is so great that they just break. And this has happened to me at least a couple times, and it just happened to me again. I recommend that you buy at least a 1/2 inch core, I guess, to be able to push this in, because this 1/4 inch, yeah, they're pretty good, but when you go a distance like that, the torque is so great that they just end up breaking it. I was using my little 3/4 impact extension, so now it's broken. So now I need to try to fix this because this thing is like $11 and I don't want it to go to the trash. I'm using these adjustable depth boxes. Yeah, they're a little bit more expensive in my opinion, but I absolutely love them. And then that way you can have an amazing job when the entire process is done. You can see here it has a little screw. It'll push it in and out. So this is basically for when drywall is in. This width is about the width of the stud. And then you can screw or nail right here in these little holes on both sides, from the front and from the sides. So this will go like this. But we're spending the money on these super fancy electrical boxes. So what I do is I actually use the planer to run it down a little bit so that this steel right here is nice and flush with the stud. So that way when we install the drywall, we don't have a little bulge in here. to try to save my super awesome extension. Well, the problem with the extension is that it's magnetic. So it's holding the little piece of bit inside magnetically. So what I'm gonna do is I found this little roofing screw that fits perfectly, but it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. I found it because it has this nice flat head. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put crazy glue on this. And then I'm just gonna try to glue it here to the little piece that broke. With a little bit of luck, it'll be strong enough to pull it out. This has happened to me at least a couple times. So if you do know a nice technique that works for this, please let me know. I would love to know it. This happens more often than I wish it did. We went to JLC and we got some free stuff from DeWalt. So thank you, DeWalt. Pretty awesome. We got this very tiny drill. This is pretty awesome, particularly when drilling these studs. We got this cool little lamp. We got a couple of these tape measures. I actually really like them. The tape is pretty sturdy and the break is really nice. We also got this like oscillating tool or multi-tool blade, I guess. It's a 2-inch, but I don't know if you can tell, it has teeth on the side. On the sides, on the top. So I actually love it. I hope it does work out pretty nicely. I'm going to be using it right now to make these holes on the shear wall. And then finally we also got an additional impact. So now we have like 5 impacts, but pretty awesome. We cannot have enough impacts here. We have a shear wall right here, and these little tabs are actually going to get in the way of the shear wall. This works out pretty nicely when you have the single stud, it grabs it and everything. But because in this case I have the shear wall, I need to kind of remove them. So I'm going to be using the grinder to cut it off basically, and they just be flat. Ideally I would run, as I showed you, the planer to make it fit nicely, but I have some nails in here. So I'm going to just shave it off of the drywall. It'll just be easier. We don't have that many to take care of. The moment of truth. It didn't work, so maybe you guys know how to remove this without breaking the extension. If you do, please comment down below. I'm gonna save it just in case any of you guys have any ideas. As I mentioned, I got tired of breaking my 1/4-inch extension, so I purchased a 1/2-inch extension. I'm very happy with it. It's very strong. I've already drilled a few holes and it basically holds like a tank. So here you go. It has like some little screws that you tighten. I highly recommend it if you did do this kind of stuff. And then of course, if you're an electrician, you cannot live without one of these 90-degree angles. There's no chance you can get into like tight spaces without it. And now for the big reveal as to how I will run those cables. Romex has this requirement that it must be run inside of the house. So what does inside mean? The way I take the rule is that anything that's inside of the building envelope is considered inside. Anything outside of the building envelope, even though it is protected and covered, it is considered outside because it could be damp. So for example, if I were to run it on the soffits, it would be considered outside because that's outside of the building envelope, while in this case I will be running it through here. This is the floor system where I'm standing, where I show you all of the rest of the circuits. This is considered inside because once we pass our electrical inspection, all of this will be covered and it will be technically inside of the building envelope. So this is how I will run these cables. What do you think? How would you do it? It's important to do a nice job cleaning because, well, first you look more professional and second you reduce the fire risk. Let's take a final circuit tour. So here's the panel where it comes in, it comes down, it goes down all the way to that outlet, and then it comes back right into the one right here. From this outlet, we go up to the ceiling, we go out to that side, we come back this way, and then we come back into this outlet. Why do we do that? Well, again, we have steel, so we have to jump it. We come down through here, and we go out through that wall. Here we have the cable, it comes all the way around, and it goes through all these joists into the other side of the house. Here come the cables, they run through a piece of furniture. We have an outlet here, we have an outlet there, and then they run into the wall. The cable is going to run through the furniture, it enters the wall, and then we finish our circuit. We made it. And with that, we're done with this episode. I actually have a bonus circuit. This circuit is actually a 12-3 cable, meaning it can run up to 240 volts at a gauge of 12. And why do we do that? That's because this piece of furniture is going to be a super awesome fireplace that we will be running. And this fireplace, even though it's a fake fireplace, it's one of those vapor ones, it's going to have a heater so that we can simulate the heat. And it's going to be an electric heater, and that requires 240 volts. It's going to be running at 6,000 watts. So that's why we have the 12-3, just in case it is a 240 or a 120 volt amp circuit. How did we run this guy? We basically ran it the exact same way as we ran this 12-2 for the rest of the circuit. I have a question for you. I'm going to be installing some lights and heaters on the exterior, and my question to you is, should I use a UFB cable, in this case a 14-2? UFB cable is designed to be on the outside and it can run on damp areas, but technically this will be running inside of a soffit, which is technically outside. So would you do it? Or what do you recommend? Should I run the conduit? I don't know. Anyway, I hope to hear your comments. I hope to hear your opinion. And don't forget, build efficiently.